gets in the way of successful manifesting? Well, that's what we're talking about today on the Manifesting Guide. But just before we do that, if you're done with pushing and forcing yourself to get things done without results, come find your Manifest Without Force or Frustration gift at highertrueself.com. It's completely free. First, let's start with a definition. The word manifestation means to create something or turn something from an idea into a reality. In psychology, manifestation usually means using our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs to bring something to our physical reality. Now, the word manifestation is the end result. It is what we are experiencing. And I don't really like to think of we cause every outcome, we manifest every outcome, because I think that can be rather harsh, especially if we are struggling with an autoimmune condition or that maybe our spouse is having trouble and we're close to divorce. Did we cause that? That's a whole other conversation, but I really want you to pause for a moment and stop if you are blaming yourself for your physical reality. Stop it, because that's actually a form of mental and emotional abuse, and you're doing it to yourself. We all have done it, especially because we're raised in this new age thing of manifesting, and I think of it very differently. So let's get on to this. So if manifestation is the end result, it's what we influenced into reality, we co-created. Manifesting is the verb. It's us being in a state of manifesting. We're manifesting. Okay. Now, is manifesting just a fancy name for luck? Well, I think of manifesting as much more grounded, practical. It's getting things done. And yes, it can be creating good fortune and luck. It isn't woo-woo. It isn't associated with listening to channeled words of wisdom. It's just to do with focus and clarity. And we do it all the time. We just didn't have a word for it. If you ever had a thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a new desk? Then at the weekend, a friend says, hey, I'm getting rid of this desk. Would you like it? We've all experienced those synchronicities, or what we can now call manifestations. But we rarely call it manifesting. Again, we think of it as good luck, good fortune, and that's correct. But if we want to be more deliberate with manifesting our desires, we want to pay a bit more attention to what we want and obviously recognize it and welcome it into our life when it comes. So how to manifest things? Well, there are multiple ways. My favorite is to allow ourselves just a brief amount of time to dream bigger than what our current reality is and capture all our big and small wishes and desires on a piece of paper. There's nothing like paper and pen and sitting in front of a cup of coffee or tea, and you've got time to dream in front of you. It's quite something, really. It's uplifting, energizing. Every time I do a wish list, I was like, gosh, I want to do that all the time. I just feel so good. It taps me into infinite possibilities and plugs me out of maybe this kind of drowning kitten in physical reality and trying to move the chess pieces on the board. And boy, we can't jump off the chessboard. It's like we can only deal with what is currently in our life, and it's so limiting. But manifesting is taking the lid off. It's allowing us to jump off the chessboard and create things in new, unusual, and what I like best, easy ways. So that's my first step, really, is what I like to call filling out a wish list. Step one. Now, it can sometimes be easy to articulate what we want. Easy to write down a universal wish list. But it might not be easy to figure out why we're not successful. Yeah, we can write wonderful things down, but we're still not financially free. We still don't have the partner of our dreams, right? So I'd like to go into a simple 3-step formula that I use to describe successful manifestation. Step 1, get clear on what you want. This is not just kind of what you want, but truly articulate in detail what you want. So be specific about the amount of money or the type of partner or the kind of house you'd like to buy. The more specific you are, the better your unconscious or source or quantum field can deliver your request. This is where a lot of people get tripped up. They will say something like, I want to be financially free. Well, that's not a clear request. I imagine you're in a restaurant, you sit down, and you say to the waiter, I'm hungry. What can the waiter do with that information? They don't know if you're a vegetarian or you're allergic to nuts or you're a raw food purist. You get the point. The waiter won't have any idea on how to help you. And manifesting can be as simple as that. When you're clear on what you want and you've written it down and you've spent time articulating that desire, that's a huge step. Now, just as in the wish list process, which actually you can get for free at the end, I'll give you a link you can go to. You really want to not just look at the big things. Like a lot of people will come to me and it's a 5-year goal. Nothing wrong with that. But that can be discouraging because a 5-year goal means you have to wait 5 years. Wouldn't it be far more enjoyable to have something smaller on your wish list, something that is maybe 30 to 40 days away, and you get to enjoy it now? So consider breaking that up into smaller little bite-sized pieces. So when we are working on a wish list, we really want to tap into this power of positivity, and so we can start to prime the pumps of good fortune. Somebody gives you something or suddenly something's wiped away. That gives you an experience of clarity because it either fits what you want or that thing has been taken away and you realize that was important. And that's really successful manifesting, is when you have those experiences that maybe are not what you call ideal, but they help you to define what you want. So let's go back to this idea of financially free, or maybe you're even more specific. You'd like to generate at least $10,000 over the next month with your online program. That's a great one, right? But if you've never created an online program, you don't even know what the name is, you don't know what the content will be, would you think the next most successful step would be to create a draft of the program, create an outline? And then maybe the next one could be to actually create the content in each one of the lessons. Are you starting to see? This can be so freeing because you are using, one of my skills is I used to be a project manager working in Europe and in Venezuela. And people would come to me when they had a complex project. They wanted to implement a whole new system across all of their headquarters, like Sun Microsystems came to me. So there are a lot of moving pieces. But someone who has the ability to have an overview of it, and then they go down into the detail, that makes for a successful project manager, and that makes for a successful manifester. Okay. So let's get back to this, our steps. The second step is to take inspired action. Now, for most of the 20th and 21st century people, we've been trained in the old school way of setting goals and forcing ourselves or using motivational strategies. I mean, there's a whole genre of books and programs, motivational strategies, rah-rah. And using these techniques to help us with manifesting is really the hardest way to do it. I'll explain. If we have a wish, and it's a delicate wish, it's something that maybe we've just articulated, but it's something really meaningful. And so if we get this idea, we'd really like to have that in our life, and we're now ready for it, we could try to force it. And forcing anything, like forcing someone to marry us, isn't that a terrible idea? Or forcing someone to sell their home, and that person you're convincing to sell the home is your wife or your husband, and they really love the home. Well, anytime you're trying to force something, what you're trying to force will push back. The spouse will push back, right? Or if you've ever walked a dog and you're trying to push the dog away from something that they're trying to eat. Dogs will eat anything. They're like, I don't know, they're other animals, lobsters, right? They'll eat anything. And you try to push the dog away to get its attention away from that thing it's going to eat. And you don't know if it's going to make them sick. And you feel the dog pushing back at you, okay? Life is like that. When you're pushing at something, it will resist. I'm sure you've had that experience before. So how do you get into inspired action? That's not using goal setting. That's not motivational strategies. It's by tuning in to intuitive guidance. And my favorite way is to be aligned with true self. And then true self gives these nudging little intuitive tips on how to get something done. Now that takes a little bit of training to be able to do that, and I well recommend it, because then it makes manifesting that much easier, because you get the clarity of what you want. You can inform true self by saying, this is what I really want, and true self weighs in on, yeah, the timing's great, and this is appropriate and for your highest and best good. And when you have that alignment, when you have, you're both working on the same task, then it can help you manifest in the most direct manner possible. But if you're in a pushing and forcing mode because you've got to get something done, my suggestion is, because sometimes we do, we gotta paint the house, we've gotta clean the carpets, we've gotta finish the taxes. There are things that they're not really landing up on our wish list. They're kind of have to get done. So for example, when I have to prepare my taxes, I remember this was really successful a few years ago. I did what my friend and I call focus time. We got on Zoom, we checked in, say, hey, how are you? How's your day going? And then we muted ourselves, and she worked on a project she had to work on, and I had my project to work on. I felt less alone, and I was able to keep my bum in the seat and get the task done at hand. Another tip is to go out to a coffee shop. If you've got something challenging to work on, you can do it while enjoying your favorite latte or cold brew. And you'll start to associate the good feelings and pleasure of the latte to the activity. And there's just something about getting out of your own space and enjoying the energy of other people. And it just doesn't feel as terrible to sit down and do that task. Another way is to sneak up on success. You don't plan for it, but you just notice yourself doing it. Now, how I do that is when I've had a good experience. So say, like this morning, I've been having trouble with the OneDrive syncing to my iMac, and I was on with my web guy. This was, I think, 3 hours into trying to solve this. And finally we got Microsoft tech support, and we did a little test. He's brilliant. And all of a sudden it started to synchronize. We had found the corrupt file, we deleted it. Now this had been 3 days of pretty much worry, because my iMac was immobilized, wasn't working, and I couldn't have access to my files. So we got it sorted. I was so excited. So I was in a great mood, okay? And when I'm in a great mood, it's often the best time to do something I've been putting off. Like one of the things I just don't enjoy doing for whatever reason is vacuuming. The cord always gets caught on something, or I'm sucking the cord up. And so what I did this morning is, right after that, when I had some time before my next appointments, I snuck up on the vacuum. And it took less time, and I didn't resent it. Okay. So let's go into step 3, receive your wish. Now, you might think this is the easiest step, but I can tell you, with the thousands of people I've worked with, being open to receiving is one of the hardest things for them to do. Sometimes it's because they got stuck in the pushing and forcing, and they just don't know how to let go of doing things in that way. So instead of inspired action, which is step 2, then they're stuck in that, I got to get it done in this way. Or they don't feel worthy of their wish. If someone has been in relationships where they're not seen, they don't feel loved and supported, they're always the one nurturing and supporting and giving to others, then to change that habit is going to be pretty tough. How are you going to tell someone, don't be so loving and supportive and nurturing? That's their nature. But what has to happen at some point, we have to shift that program in the unconscious mind that will not allow them to rest and receive. It's critical. It's a critical step in successful manifesting to allow ourselves to be supported and nurtured. Now, we've talked before about blockers, programs in the unconscious mind. And these programs, we can almost call them habits, okay? And it's a big part of the work we do, identifying those habitual ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving, taking action. And we transform them into success habits. And I could say positive openness, so that we're ready, willing, and able to receive our wish after we've asked for it. How do you know if you're blocked in receiving? If you've been working really hard on something and you're really committed, you know it's right for you, and you've had some progress, you've seen some success along the way, but somehow you never can get it across the finish line, it never feels done. You never receive that big sense of accomplishment and success. It's quite likely you're not open to receiving. You're really open to working. You're doing inspired action. That's great. But it's crossing that finish line. Maybe there's lots of reasons. I'm not going to invent here. But it could be that you've got a block. You've got a block. And you might like to be in productive mode more than you like to rest and recharge. I think a lot of us are like that. All right, thanks for listening. I've really enjoyed this podcast. And I want to invite you, if you'd like to remove your blocks to joyful manifesting, I have a masterclass you can watch. It's completely free, and I promise you, you will come away from the masterclass feeling lighter and clearer about your top desire, and discover a way to remove the blocks to receiving. Or if you happen to have a block in the asking and the wishing, or you have a block in the taking action, or in the inspired action, these 3 steps, we go into it in more detail. Now, as we wrap up, if you've enjoyed the episode, you can follow me on facebook.com/higher true self and tell me what you'd like to hear more of. And again, if you're done with pushing and forcing yourself to get things done without results, come find your Manifest Without Force or Frustration gift at highertrueself.com. It's completely free. Remember, self-confirmation frees you to be yourself.